Hey, Amanda here, ready to paint with you again. This week we're going to make this cute little nest with 3 little eggs in it. This week you'll need the rough sketch from your kit and the paints from your kit, but you should have brown left over from last week. And then you'll also need a paintbrush, a paper towel, and water. We're going to start with the brown paint for our nest. And we just want to let our hands mimic the shape of the sticks woven in an arc for the nest. I'm just sweeping my brush back and forth, not worrying about hard lines. I'm just following the suggestion of the rough sketch, but I'm not too worried about it. In fact, we need to let some of the paint go free at the edges to give the illusion of twigs. And I want to take a minute to mention that once you're finished with this week's project, please send your paint back into the center. I'm going to wash them all up and get them ready for our next painting. We don't need to worry that this layer has to be perfect. We're going to be coming back to it a little bit later. Right now we're just going to get the color down and the general shape down. In fact, I go a little bit below the sketch line to create the bowl shape that I want. Now we can start working on the back of the nest. I take my time outlining the eggs, but before the paint dries, I try to put some brush strokes into the paint so that it gets that stick feel again. And just keep working around the back of the nest, outlining each of the eggs carefully, and then adding some little wispy lines in there. As I turned my painting around, I realized I didn't like the right side over here, so I just add a few more brush strokes in to balance it out. And that's what I meant by the fact that we're going to be going back and forth and not to be too concerned about it the first time. So to make our shadows and give the nest some depth, we need to create a slightly darker brown. And here I'm just using the top of my paint pot to mix into. I'm adding some brown right in there, and then very carefully just adding a little bit of black at a time and mixing it up really well, and then test it. And then we can start adding that to the back of the nest. That'll help us create depth so that it looks like it's in the background and distinguish it from the front edge of the nest. Once the back of your nest is done, you want to clean your brush really well so that we can mix up a little bit of gray with a hint of brown in it to do some highlights on the front of the nest. Make sure it's mixed really well, and then as you're adding these little branches in, don't feel like you need to add too many highlights. You want to make sure all the other colors are showing through and you get a good blend of many shades. So wash your brush off really well, because we're going to switch colors and get to work on our eggs in this beautiful light blue color. And as you start painting your eggs, do them one at a time and try to paint in the direction of the egg. Even though it's a flat color right now, your brush strokes actually help shape the egg and give visual interest to the egg shape. You'll see that even when I turn my paper around to paint from a better angle, while the paint is still wet, I go back over it in the correct direction of the egg to help establish those brush lines. Now I'm getting ready to mix up another color. We're going to make a slightly darker blue to help make some depth on those eggs. So I'm taking our light blue, I'm going to add just a touch of brown to it. And this is going to be a medium shadow color. We're actually going to be using an even darker color later, so this can be used fairly liberally. And we're going to be going over just the back eggs to help them look a little bit further behind that front egg. I decided to revisit that front egg. I'm using the light blue again and just helping reestablish the lines between the front egg and the back eggs, and to brighten it up a bit. And while this paint is still wet, I'm going to grab just a little bit of that darker blue that we created and add a little bit of shadow and depth to one side of that front egg, but not too much. We're going to get ready to go back to that dark brown that we mixed up earlier that's in our cap. We're going to use it to create a sharper shadow line around each of the eggs. You want to really, really thinly outline the egg and the top of the nest. If you find you can't get that dark brown line thin enough, that's okay, because you'll see here in a minute, I'm going to go back over while the paint is wet and blend it up into the eggs. So it's not going to be a hard line forever. If it looks too thick, it's going to thin out a bit. See, here I am pulling the edge of the line that we created onto the egg, and it creates even darker shadows there. And I'm going to do it to the other side. And while I have the dark brown out, I'm going back over and cleaning up any lines I need to around the eggs to finalize the shape of them. And I'm sorry my head keeps showing every once in a while. Now we're going to go back to the front of our nest to add some nice dark shadows to it as well. And feel free to let some sticks poke up over the eggs. And I like to pretend that the sun is on the left, and so I put more shadows usually on the right. Then I decided I wanted speckled eggs, so I got a little bit of brown and added some dots to them really, really lightly. And to finish off, I decided our nest and eggs need a little hint of gold just to make them extra special. And so I got some gold on my brush and then used the lid to really blend it into the brush bristles so you don't get hard lines, and then sweep it across the nest. I tried to pretend like it was kind of where the sunshine might be hitting it. And then also onto the eggs, you want to make sure that your dots, if you added speckles, are dry before you start going at the eggs themselves, though, or you're just going to make a big mess. So as we're finishing up, I just wanted to remind you again to return your paint pots. I need those so that I can wash them and refill them with new colors, and we can do another project together. And there we have our 3 cute little spring eggs tucked safely in their nest. I hope you enjoyed painting with me. I always love painting with you, and I really love seeing what you guys do, so feel free to send a photo in to Path. And make sure you subscribe to the whole channel so you don't miss any of our videos.